And welcome back to Clinical Trader. And today we're going to take a look at a company on the Australian Stock Exchange. It's known as Resolute Mining. And it's been through a pretty torrid time in the last year to 18 months. And there are reasons for that. And we're going to talk about those today. So stay tuned and get ready to enjoy the show. And we'll kick off with looking at Yahoo Finance just to get a bit of an idea about the fundamentals of Resolute Mining. And the things I like to focus on are the market cap and enterprise value. And you can see here, we've got the market cap here intraday at the end of Friday, which would have been the 25th of November, today being the 27th, at $228 million. And enterprise value at $531 million. And you can see that that's quite a difference between the two figures here. And it is a representation of the nature of the struggles of Resolute Mining in recent months. So let's take a look at a recent presentation. So just some background information on Resolute Mining. You can see here on this map here, we've got the operation centers out of Mali and Senegal. And I guess if we were to look at some of the key risks for Resolute, they would be its location and the political instability that threatens these particular countries, probably more so Mali than Senegal. And that's simply because there's been a bit of disruption going on in the country, a bit of terrorism and so forth. And, it's not a rich country, it's a poor country. And so the interest of the gold, I guess, in the ground in Mali is in the interest of all people. And the government is supposed to be looking after all of its people. All right. Now let's look at the resources they do have. So looking at Syama, they have two main projects. One is Syama here and the other one is Mako. Mako is in Senegal and Syama is in Mali. Okay, so we'll take a look at Syama first. It's a long life asset. It's got 85 kilometers of strike. So that means length of gold prospect in a highly prospective gold region. In total, they've got 8.7 million ounce resource. The one we're interested in, though, is the reserves, this one here. And that's because that's known gold. And they've got 3.4 million ounces of known gold in the ground in Syama, which is pretty considerable. The processing plant has a capacity of 1.5 million tons per annum. And so that's about a standard sort of size processing plant. It's not huge. That's for oxide, and for sulfide it's 2.4 million tons, which is a much bigger plant, as you can see there. And of course, their guidance at 225,000 ounces for the financial year 2022, which has now started. All right, let's look at Mako then. Mako is a gold mine that they took hold of a couple of years ago. It's a conventional open pit mining and processing operations with near mine potential. So there's no actual mining going on there yet. So they're in the stages, I guess, of putting together studies to decide whether or not it's worthwhile pursuing through their pre-feasibility study. I think that's due out in March next year, and then a definitive final study, which will work out. So they've got a lot of exploration to do here on Mako. They've got a larger oxide plant at 2.1 million tons per annum and hoping to get 125,000 ounces of gold out of the ground there. So that's really interesting. You won't look at this too much. That's their expenditures on capital expenditure to get their mines up and running. This is particularly related to Mako because that's the one that they're really working on to get up and running, whereas Syama is up and running. All right, so moving along, I won't read through that. There was just one other thing I wanted to point out here. This is interesting. It shows that their costs in the yellow line coming down, but their processing going up. So really positive in terms of future growth. They've had a 29% increase in sulfide gold since Q1 when they had to shut down the roaster because it just wasn't functioning properly. So that was a month of shutdown, and the price did not like that at the time, and it fell away. and it hasn't recovered since, to be honest, even though the increase is 29%. So that's an improvement. And of course, they're jumping on this and advertising and doing a bit of marketing on that factor. It's positive, and it's a good thing, and it should increase production and lower cost at the same time. Oh, yes, down here. Some of these grades were interesting to me. And you can see here that we have a range of widths and grades. So 20 meters at 9.8, which is really quite good. 30 at 3.8, 30 at 3.8 again, 19 at 8. So they got some pretty wide exploration results around that Syama North area with some really reasonably good grades. And at levels sort of within that one, what would that be, 130 up to about 190 meters depth. So that would be appropriate for an open pit mine. And who knows what's below it. Okay, just wanted to tap on that. And the next thing I wanted to show you guys was this announcement that came out. Actually, before I talk to that, let's just have a quick look at this here. This is from Gold Telegraph. And look, it's not Mali and it's not Senegal, but Ghana has ordered large gold mining companies to sell 20% of refined bullion to the nation's central bank. So essentially taking hold of the gold before it gets to the open market. And 20% is a reasonable amount. And it's certainly locked in a buyer for those companies who are operating out of Ghana, one of which I think is Perseus Mining. And if you look at their share price, it's been going really quite well in recent times. And of course, we might ask the question, why does Ghana want all that gold? And part of the reason for that is that they've decided they're going to pay for their oil imports with gold rather than US dollars. So moving away from the US dollar petrodollar system and moving into some other form. The other thing too is, of course, that Ghana's local currency has been one of the worst performing in the world. And so trading in gold and getting hold of gold, particularly when you compare gold price in US dollars to their own currency, is in their interest to try and stem that fall. So if other countries in the region do the same thing, then I think that could be quite attractive for gold miners going forward because they'll have a guaranteed buyer, and that may even increase, from 20% to 40%. And God forbid that it be 100%, because that's essentially just taking control of all mining in their own country, which, may not be a bad thing for Ghana, but if you're an ASX investor living in Australia, that may not be the best thing for you in terms of the stock price. But coming back here, one of the things that Resolute does and what has prompted me to make this video is that they've really taken some solid steps here to reduce their debt. And you can see here on the 10th of November, they took on a $140 million equity raising to strengthen the balance sheet to essentially pay down the debt that they owe, which currently sits at $156 million. And that would reduce it down to $65 million, with some proceeds going towards other work, such as general capital, working capital, and fund growth activities, including the expansion of Syama North, which was the grades I showed you on that previous slide. So all good news. Now, in addition to the $140 million here, that's equity raise, an entitlement offer has also been agreed upon. And some details here about that. The proceeds of the $60 million equity raise, in addition to the $140 million, in conjunction with blah, 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 conjunction with pro forma cash reserves of $77 million and future free cash flow will be used to further repay debt and generate working capital. And so that to me is interesting. And I think that really does, particularly in these higher interest rate environments, really does suggest that they have had enough of it. The debt's too high and it's time to get it down no matter the cost. Okay, Resolute's performance has steadily improved with 4 consecutive quarters of increased production. So that's on the way up and looking good. The equity raising is the final step in Resolute's transition to a sustainable gold producer. And by that, we're talking about economic sustainability, not so much environmental sustainability. The raise is at 16 cents per share, and interestingly, since they took on this fundraising, the share never got to 16 cents. That doesn't mean that it won't. If it ever did in the next week or even in the next month, that could prove to be an excellent opportunity to purchase the shares. And I just can't see it dropping below, because the impact of the debt reduction is just too obvious for everyone to see. So that's the raising price. I think that's all I highlighted on here. So that was on the 10th of November. You can see that date there. And then we go forward and we get to 4 days later. They actually increased it from $140 million to $164 million. So there was a lot of interest in this, particularly from an investor or a hedge fund or some kind of like gold mining guru. Condire Investments were the guys who actually underwrote the share raising. And so there was a lot of interest, essentially. The retail entitlement offers also been raised to $104 million, $68 million of which is underwritten or guaranteed. So any shortfall will be taken on by Condire. And there's some dates there about when all this happens. I guess the key day here is that 5th of December, 2022. By that stage, everything's basically sorted and we're away. All right. A couple of other things here. The cash, at this stage, it looks like $144 million of that equity raising will be used to reduce net debt, and $20 million to fund general working capital, the costs of the equity raising, and to support the company's Syama North expansion. So I'm really happy with the amount that's been raised. I'm really happy that the debt will be reduced, and there'll also be some spare cash for working capital to develop the Syama North open pit. I did not show the area they're looking at. I will show you that. Where is it? It's here somewhere. Here it is. Yeah, so this is the area in here we're looking at. So there's already the existing open pit, but this is the area where we've got all that extra drilling that's taken place to define this 3.1 gram per ton, 2 million ounce resource, which is very economical. So it's just it really is just a matter of getting this up and going, and it'll add to their mining ounces. Okay, so yep, covered that. And I think that's all I've got on there. So that takes us up to the latest announcements. That's where we sit. Take a look at the chart here. And you can see that long downtrend that we were talking about earlier. So what's that? That's Monday, the 27th of July, 2020. So what's that? That's over 2 years we've had this downtrend from $1.30 all the way down. And we currently sit down here at 18.5 cents. And of course, the raise price was 16 cents. And that's really where these lows are here. But those lows were achieved before the announcement. Okay, so 17th October, just looking at the dates at the bottom, 24, 31st of October. So all those lows were registered before the equity raising on the 10th of November. And of course, now here we find ourselves. And by the way, this is that weekly chart. So you can see that long down trend. We'll have to get above this red line really to get bullish on the stock. But by all means, if it did come down and touch this green area again here, that would be absolutely a go zone for me. I'd be buying with everything I got. You can see we've got a little bit of bullishness on the indicators down at the bottom here on the longer term weekly time frame. Targets might include up here at about 39 cents. That would double your money. You'd be up 100%. And the next target up from that, to me, looks to be these previous highs over here at around 56, 58 cents, and the low over here in March 2020. We look at the daily chart. Okay, so look at the 10th here. Where's that 10th? Okay, the 10th. Yeah, so right in here is where they went into a trading hold about the equity raise. And of course, we're just hovering around through this area here. And we would need to see a little green dot form down here and this begin to keep turning up before we get excited. But again, we've got to get above that red line. So that's RSG, Resolute Mining.
out of touch.